Most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid being alone. The moment the room gets quiet, the television comes on. The phone comes out. Music starts playing. Notifications begin buzzing. We fill every empty space with something because somewhere along the way we were taught that being alone is uncomfortable. But here's something worth thinking about. Maybe the discomfort isn't caused by solitude. Maybe it's caused by finally meeting the person we've been too busy to know. There is a remarkable difference between loneliness and solitude, and confusing the two has kept many people from discovering one of life's greatest gifts. Loneliness is the feeling that something is missing. Solitude is the realization that something valuable has been waiting for you all along. One drains your spirit. The other restores it. You can be surrounded by hundreds of people and still feel completely alone. On the other hand, you can sit quietly by yourself and feel deeply connected to who you are. The number of people around you has very little to do with the quality of your inner life. That's an important lesson because too many people chase company when what they really need is clarity. Think about how much time you spend learning about other people. You know what your friends like. You know what your coworkers think. You know what strangers are doing because your phone reminds you every few minutes. But here's a question that deserves an honest answer. How well do you know yourself? What truly excites you? What do you believe? What kind of person are you becoming? What dreams have you quietly pushed aside because life became busy? Those answers rarely appear in a crowded room. They appear in moments of silence. Success is built from the inside before anyone ever notices it on the outside. Long before there is applause, there are quiet mornings. Long before there is achievement, there are private decisions. Long before confidence becomes visible, it is developed in conversations you have with yourself when no one else is listening. That's why solitude is so powerful. It gives you the opportunity to become honest. Honest about your strengths. Honest about your weaknesses. Honest about the excuses you've been making. Honest about the potential you've been ignoring. And while honesty may not always be comfortable, it is always valuable. You see, it's difficult to improve a life you haven't taken time to examine. You can't build a better future if you've never paused long enough to ask where your chivasi actually headed. A person can stay busy for years and still never move closer to the life they truly want. Activity is not the same as progress. When you intentionally spend time alone, something interesting begins to happen. Your thoughts slow down. The opinions of everyone else become quieter. The pressure to impress starts to fade. Little by little, your own voice becomes easier to hear. And that voice matters more than you realize because it becomes the foundation for every decision you'll ever make. The world is full of people trying to tell you who you should be. They have opinions about your career, your goals, your appearance, your relationships, your success. If you never step away from all that noise, you spend your life living according to someone else's expectations instead of your own values. Solitude gives you the chance to ask better questions. Am I living with purpose? Am I growing or simply getting older? Am I making choices that move me toward the future I want? Or am I just reacting to whatever happens each day? Those are life-changing questions, but they require quiet to answer. Here's another truth. The relationship you have with yourself sets the standard for every other relationship in your life. If you don't trust yourself, you'll constantly seek reassurance from others. If you don't respect yourself, you'll settle for less than you deserve. If you don't know yourself, you'll be easily influenced by every passing opinion. But when you've spent time understanding who you are, something changes. You become steadier, calmer, more confident, not because life became easier, but because your foundation became stronger. Don't be afraid of those quiet moments. Welcome them. Protect them. They are not empty moments. They are investment moments. Every minute you spend understanding yourself pays dividends in better choices, stronger character, healthier relationships, and a clearer sense of direction. The greatest discoveries in your life may never happen while the world is applauding. They may happen while the world is silent, and you finally have the courage to listen. Remember this. The strongest life is built from the strongest relationship you'd say. The one with yourself. Once you begin to understand yourself, something else begins to happen. The fog starts to lift. Decisions that once seemed impossible become a little clearer. Problems that felt overwhelming become easier to understand. Not because your circumstances changed overnight, but because your mind finally had the space to think. That's one of the greatest gifts solitude offers us. It creates clarity. Take a look at the world we live in. Every day we're surrounded by noise. The phone rings. Messages arrive. Social media competes for our attention. News headlines tell us what to fear. Advertisements tell us what we need. People offer advice whether we asked for it or not. From the moment we wake up until the moment we fall asleep, someone is trying to occupy our attention. Now, here's the important question. If everyone else is speaking, when do you get a chance to hear your own thoughts? Many people mistake information for wisdom. They believe that because they're constantly consuming something, they're constantly growing. But information without reflection is just mental clutter. You can read 10 books and never change. You can listen to hundreds of podcasts and still make poor decisions. Knowledge becomes valuable only when you give yourself time to think about it. That's what solitude does. It transforms information into understanding. Think about a muddy glass of water. If you keep stirring it, the water stays cloudy. But if you simply set it down and leave it alone, the dirt slowly settles, and the water becomes clear. Your mind works much the same way. Constant activity keeps your thoughts stirred up. Solitude allows everything to settle. Suddenly, what was confusing becomes obvious. How many times have you struggled with a problem for days, only to discover the answer while taking a quiet walk or sitting alone with a cup of coffee? The answer didn't magically appear. It was already there. You simply removed enough distractions to recognize it. Some of the biggest mistakes people make aren't because they lack intelligence. They're because they make decisions while their minds are crowded. They react instead of reflect. They rush instead of pause. They answer questions they haven't fully considered. And afterward they wonder why life feels so complicated. One of the most valuable habits you can develop is learning not to make important decisions in the middle of emotional noise. Give yourself time. Step away. Let your emotions settle before your choices become permanent. A calm mind almost always sees what an anxious mind cannot. Success has never belonged to the fastest thinker. More often, it belongs to the clearest thinker. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to solve someone else's problems? You can see exactly what they should do because you'd looking at the situation without all the emotional weight they're carrying. But when it's your own life, emotions cloud your vision. That's why solitude is so valuable. It creates enough distance between you and the problem that you begin to see it objectively. Clarity doesn't mean every answer arrives at once. Sometimes clarity simply tells you what the next right step is. And that's enough. You don't need to see the entire staircase before taking the first step. You only need enough light to move forward with confidence. There's another benefit to quiet thinking. It helps you separate what is urgent from what is important. Modern life trains us to respond immediately to everything. Every notification feels like an emergency. Every request demands instant attention. But the things that truly shape your future, your health, your character, your relationships, your goals, rarely shout. They whisper. If your life is filled with constant noise, you'll hear every distraction, but miss the quiet voice, guiding you toward what matters most. Some people are constantly busy because being busy makes them feel productive. Yet activity alone doesn't guarantee results. A person can spend an entire day running in circles and still end up exactly where they started. A few moments of thoughtful reflection can accomplish more than hours of frantic movement. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your decisions, and the quality of your decisions is determined by the quality of your thinking. That's why protecting your mind isn't a luxury. It's a responsibility. Create moments where nothing competes for your attention. Go for a walk without your phone. Sit quietly before the day begins. Write your thoughts in a journal. Drive without turning on the radio. Give your mind permission to breathe. At first it may feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. But before long you'll discover something remarkable. Ideas become sharper. Priorities become clearer. Confidence begins to replace confusion. Because you no longer reacting to every voice around you. You're finally listening to the one voice that matters most. Your own reason, your own values, your own vision. When your mind becomes clear, your direction becomes clear. And when your direction becomes clear, your actions begin to carry purpose instead of pressure. That's the difference between drifting through life and deliberately creating it. Protect your silence, because clarity is where better decisions begin. Once your mind becomes quieter and your thinking becomes clearer, something deeper begins to happen. You stop looking only at the world around you, and you begin looking honestly at the world within you. That is where real growth begins. Not in comfort, not in applause, not when everything is going your way. Real growth begins the moment you have the courage to face yourself. Most people are willing to work hard on their careers. They'll spend years developing skills, earning degrees, and building experience. They'll invest in businesses, homes, and opportunities. But surprisingly few people invest the same level of effort into understanding and improving the person staring back at them in the mirror. It's easier to point to circumstances than to examine character. It's easier to blame the economy, bad luck, difficult people, or missed opportunities than to ask a difficult question. What part of this can I improve? That question isn't meant to create guilt. It's meant to create growth. Because the moment you recognize what you can change, you also discover where your power truly lies. Solitude has a remarkable way of removing distractions. When you're alone, there is no audience to impress. There is no one to convince. There is nowhere to hide behind conversations or constant activity. Eventually, you're left with your own thoughts, your own habits, your own choices, and your own excuses. Now, that can feel uncomfortable at first. Most of us have parts of ourselves we'd rather not examine too closely. We all have fears we've ignored, mistakes we've tried to forget, disappointments we've buried beneath busyness. We convince ourselves that if we keep moving fast enough, those things will somehow disappear, but they don't. They simply wait patiently until we're finally willing to face them. Here's the encouraging part. The things you avoid often lose their power the moment you confront them. Fear grows in the dark. Doubt grows in silence when it goes unquestioned. But when you bring those thoughts into the light, you often realize they were much smaller than you imagined. The mountain you've been afraid to climb sometimes turns out to be a hill. You're fav, meging, withermanging, when. Every successful person has had moments of uncertainty. Every confident person has faced insecurity. Every disciplined person has battled temptation. The difference isn't that they never struggled. The difference is that they chose not to run from the struggle. They used it as a teacher instead of treating it as an enemy. Growth has always required honesty. Perhaps you've been telling yourself that you'll begin pursuing your dreams someday. Maybe you've convinced yourself you're too old, too young, too inexperienced, or too late. Maybe you've been waiting for confidence before taking action. But confidence rarely comes first. More often, confidence is the reward for taking action despite uncertainty. Those limiting beliefs don't disappear because someone gives you a motivational speech. They disappear because you stop believing every negative story you've been telling yourself. Think about how many invisible conversations happen inside your own mind every single day. I'm not good enough. Someone else could do this better. What if I fail? What if people judge me? Those quiet thoughts shape your life far more than most people realize. If you don't challenge them, they'll quietly become the blueprint for your future. Solitude gives you the opportunity to rewrite that blueprint. Instead of asking, why can't I? You begin asking, why not me? Instead of saying, I've always been this way, you begin saying, I can become better. That small shift changes everything, because your future is determined less by your past than by the choices you make today. Personal growth isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more fully who you were capable of being all along. That process requires patience. No tree grows overnight. No masterpiece is completed in a single afternoon. Character is built one decision at a time. Discipline is strengthened one habit at a time. Confidence grows one courageous action at a time. Every day you choose honesty over excuses, responsibility over blame, and progress over comfort. You're becoming someone stronger than you were yesterday. There will be moments when the truth about yourself isn't flattering. You may discover habits that have been holding you back. You may recognize attitudes that need to change, or fears that have quietly controlled your decisions. Don't let those discoveries discourage you. Celebrate them. You cannot improve what you refuse to acknowledge. Awareness is not the end of the journey. It's the beginning of transformation. Remember, the purpose of looking inward is never to criticize yourself endlessly. It's to develop yourself intentionally. There's a tremendous difference between judging yourself and educating yourself. One leaves you discouraged, the other leaves you empowered. Life has an interesting way of rewarding those who are willing to do the difficult inner work. As you become more honest with yourself, you become more patient with others. As you strengthen your character, your confidence no longer depends on approval. As you grow internally, external obstacles lose much of their ability to shake you. The strongest victories you'll ever experience are often invisible to everyone else. They're the moments when you choose discipline over distraction, courage over fear, responsibility over excuses, and growth over comfort. Those private victories eventually become public success. Never be afraid of meeting the person you truly are, because that's where the person you're meant to become is waiting. The life you want begins the moment you stop running from yourself. Once you've learned to face yourself honestly, you'll begin to notice something fascinating. The path you're walking is not a new one. Throughout history, many of the world's greatest achievers discovered the same lesson. There are moments when you have to step away from the crowd in order to become the person capable of leading it. We often admire people's success without paying attention to the process that created it. We see the finished masterpiece, but we never see the countless quiet hours that came before it. We celebrate the speech, but we overlook the years of reading, thinking, and reflection. We applaud the victory, but we ignore the lonely mornings when no one was watching. Success has always had a private side. Every great builder first imagines the structure before laying the first brick. Every inventor spends countless hours wrestling with ideas that no one else can yet understand. Every author sits alone with a blank page before readers ever hold the finished book in their hands. Every musician practices long before the audience hears the performance. The visible success is only the final chapter. The invisible preparation is where the story is truly written. That should encourage every one of us. If your progress feels invisible right now, don't mistake invisibility for insignificance. Just because no one sees your effort doesn't mean your effort isn't shaping your future. Some of the most valuable work you'll ever do will happen in complete silence. Our culture celebrates constant visibility. It encourages us to share every achievement, every meal, every opinion, every milestone. There's nothing wrong with celebrating progress, but don't become so focused on being seen that you forget the importance of becoming prepared. Character develops quietly. Wisdom grows quietly. Discipline grows quietly. Vision grows quietly. The roots of a mighty tree spend years growing beneath the surface before anyone notices how tall it has become. Yet without those hidden roots, the tree could never withstand the storms that eventually arrive. Your personal development works exactly the same way. What happens within you determines how high you can eventually rise. One of the greatest mistakes people make is comparing their beginning to someone else's. Middle. They see another person's accomplishments and assume success happened quickly. They don't see the sacrifices. They don't see the failures. They don't see the lonely evenings spent studying while others were being entertained. They don't see the repeated attempts that came before the breakthrough. What looks like overnight success is almost always years of quiet preparation finally becoming visible. That realization changes your perspective. Instead of becoming discouraged because progress feels slow, you begin appreciating every small improvement. Every page you read matters. Every skill you practice matters. Every promise you keep to yourself matters. Every quiet morning spent improving your thinking matters. Those small investments rarely produce dramatic results in a single day, but over months and years they create extraordinary change. Think about the people whose lives inspire you. Whether they built businesses, wrote books, led movements, created great works of art, or changed the lives of others, one quality appears again and again. They valued time alone, not because they disliked people, but because they understood that meaningful contribution requires thoughtful preparation. You cannot pour into others if you've never taken time to fill your own cup. You cannot offer wisdom if you've never reflected deeply. You cannot lead with confidence if you've never developed conviction in private. Leadership isn't something that begins the day people decide to follow you. Leadership begins the day you decide to lead yourself. That's a powerful distinction. Many people want influence without discipline. They want recognition without preparation. They want extraordinary results from ordinary habits. But life doesn't usually work that way. The harvest always reflects the seeds that were planted long before anyone noticed the field. When you spend time in solitude, you're planting those seeds. You're strengthening your thinking. You're sharpening your judgment. You're developing patience. You're building emotional stability. You're creating a vision that isn't easily shaken by temporary setbacks. And here's something else worth remembering. The crowd isn't always moving in the right direction. History is filled with moments when the majority was mistaken. If your confidence depends entirely on agreement from everyone around you, you'll constantly change direction. But when you've developed conviction during moments of solitude, you're able to stand firm even when standing alone. That's not stubbornness. That's clarity. The world needs people who think before they speak, who reflect before they react, and who build character before seeking recognition. Those qualities aren't developed in constant noise. They're developed in quiet moments, when no one is handing out applause. Don't underestimate the value of unseen preparation. Every day you invest in yourself, even when no one notices, you're becoming the kind of person who can handle greater opportunities when they arrive. Opportunity has a habit of finding people who have quietly prepared for it. So don't become impatient with the process. Don't assume you're falling behind because your growth isn't making headlines. Continue reading. Continue learning. Continue reflecting. Continue improving. Every day spent becoming better is a day wisely invested, even if the results aren't immediately visible. The world applauds the performance, but life rewards the preparation. And preparation almost always happens in moments of solitude. The strongest leaders are built in private, long before they're recognized in public. As you continue investing in those quiet moments, something remarkable begins to change inside you. It's no longer just about understanding yourself, thinking more clearly, or preparing for success. You begin to develop something that cannot be bought, borrowed, or given by someone else. You begin to build emotional strength, and that kind of strength is becoming increasingly rare. We live in a world where emotions are constantly being pulled in every direction. One compliment can make someone feel unstoppable, while one criticism can ruin their entire week. One successful day creates confidence, while one setback creates doubt. Too many people have handed control of their emotional lives over to circumstances they cannot control. But there's a better way to live. When you regularly spend time in solitude, you slowly stop depending on the world to tell you who you are. Instead, you develop an inner stability that isn't easily shaken by praise or criticism, success or failure, approval or rejection. You begin to realize that peace is not something you find in perfect circumstances. Peace is something you cultivate within yourself. Think about the strongest people you've ever met. Chances are, they weren't the loudest people in the room. They didn't need to prove themselves every few minutes. They weren't constantly seeking attention or reassurance. There was simply a quiet confidence about them. They knew who they were, and because of that, they weren't easily disturbed by what everyone else thought. That kind of confidence isn't created overnight. It's built one quiet decision at a time. Every time you choose reflection over reaction, you're becoming stronger. Every time you choose patience over anger, you're becoming stronger. Every time you choose responsibility over excuses, you're becoming stronger. And every time you choose to stand by your values instead of chasing approval, you're becoming stronger. Emotional strength isn't the absence of emotion. It's the ability to manage your emotions instead of allowing your emotions to manage you. There will always be disappointments. There will always be people who misunderstand you. There will always be unexpected setbacks. No one escapes those experiences. The question isn't whether difficulties will arrive. The question is who you'll become when they do. If your happiness depends entirely on external circumstances, life will always feel unpredictable. You'll be happy when people agree with you and discouraged when they don't. You'll feel confident when everything is working and defeated when challenges appear. That's an exhausting way to live because you've placed your emotional well-being into the hands of situations you cannot control. Solitude teaches a different lesson. It reminds you that your greatest source of strength comes from within. When you become comfortable spending time with yourself, You stop fearing moments of silence. You stop needing constant entertainment. You stop chasing validation from every conversation, every comment, every opinion. Instead, you begin asking a much more important question. Am I living according to my own principles? That's where real confidence begins. Confidence isn't believing you'll never fail. Confidence is knowing that even if you do fail, you'll learn, adapt, and continue moving forward. That confidence grows during quiet moments, because solitude teaches self-reliance. It reminds you that while support from others is valuable, your determination cannot depend on their approval. Encouragement is wonderful, but discipline must come from within. There will be seasons when people cheer you on. There will also be seasons when no one notices your effort. If your motivation disappears every time recognition disappears, your progress will always be inconsistent. But when you've developed emotional strength, you continue working whether the applause is loud, quiet, or completely absent. That's maturity. Another beautiful gift of emotional strength is resilience. Life has a way of testing every one of us. Plans fall apart. Relationships change. Opportunities disappear. Unexpected problems appear without warning. You can't prevent every storm, but you can become the kind of person who isn't destroyed by one. Trees with shallow roots fall during strong winds. Trees with deep roots remain standing. Your emotional life works exactly the same way. Those quiet moments you've spent reflecting, learning, growing, and understanding yourself become the roots that keep you steady when life becomes difficult. Others may panic around you, but you've developed the habit of slowing down before reacting. You've learned that temporary emotions don't deserve permanent decisions. That's an incredibly valuable lesson. Strength also changes the way you treat other people. The more secure you become within yourself, the less you feel the need to compete, compare, or criticize. You're no longer threatened by someone else's success because your worth isn't measured against theirs. You're able to encourage others genuinely because stop searching for your own value in their opinions. Isn't that a freeing way to live? Imagine waking up every morning without feeling the need to impress everyone you meet. Imagine making decisions based on your values instead of public opinion. Imagine ending each day knowing you acted with integrity, regardless of who noticed. That freedom isn't reserved for a fortunate few. It's available to anyone willing to spend time developing the person within. Remember, muscles grow by resisting weight. Character grows by resisting temptation. Emotional strength grows by resisting the urge to let every circumstance determine your state of mind. The world will always be unpredictable. People will always have opinions. Circumstances will always change. But the stronger you become on the inside, the less those outside forces will control your life. True strength is quiet, steady, and unshakable, and it is built in the moments you spend alone. So where do we go from here? We've talked about discovering yourself through solitude. We've explored how silence brings clarity, how honest self-reflection produces growth, how history has shown that meaningful achievement is often born in private, and how time alone builds the emotional strength to stand firm when life becomes difficult. But none of those ideas will change your life unless they become part of your daily routine. Knowledge can inspire you for a moment. Habits can transform you for a lifetime. The difference between people who admire a better life and people who actually build one is usually found in what they repeatedly do, not in what they occasionally believe. Lasting change is rarely dramatic. More often, it's the result of small choices made consistently over time. That's good news. Why? Because it means you don't have to change your entire life today. You don't need to disappear into the mountains or spend weeks isolated from the world. Solitude isn't about escaping your responsibilities. It's about creating intentional moments where you can reconnect with yourself before returning to those responsibilities with greater purpose. Start small. Wake up 20 or 30 minutes earlier than usual. Sit somewhere quiet before the demands of the day begin. Leave your phone out of reach. Resist the temptation to check messages, scroll through headlines, or immediately fill your mind with someone else's thoughts. Give yourself the gift of beginning the day with your own. You might simply sit in silence. You might write down your thoughts. You might read a few pages from a book that stretches your thinking. You might take a walk while allowing your mind to reflect instead of constantly consuming information. The activity matters less than the intention. The purpose is to create space where your mind can breathe. Don't worry if it feels uncomfortable at first. Most worthwhile habits do. The first day you exercise, your body feels difficult. The first day you save money instead of spending it requires discipline. The first day you speak in front of an audience brings nervousness. Growth almost always begins with discomfort, because your gills promounts. When nang sent, being talizo, you are asking yourself to become someone you haven't been before. Stay with it. One quiet morning won't transform your life. One thoughtful journal entry won't suddenly answer every question. One peaceful walk won't solve every challenge. But don't underestimate the power of consistency. A single drop of water seems insignificant, yet thousands of drops can carve through solid rock. Daily habits work exactly the same way. The little things, repeated faithfully, eventually produce extraordinary results. Think about the person you want to become 5 years from now. Will that person think differently? Almost certainly. Will that person make wiser decisions? I hope so. Will that person respond to challenges with greater patience and confidence? Very likely. The question is this: when does that transformation begin? It begins today, not someday, not when life becomes easier, not when you have more time. Time isn't something you find. Time is something you choose. Every day you're making investments. Sometimes you invest your attention into distractions. Sometimes you invest your energy into worry. Sometimes you invest your hours into activities that leave no lasting return. Imagine if you redirected just a small portion of that investment toward your own growth. 20 focused minutes each day becomes more than 100 hours in a year. Think about that. More than 100 hours spent reading, reflecting, planning, learning, and strengthening your thinking. Do you believe that person would make better decisions? Would communicate more effectively? Would become more confident? Of course they would. Because personal development always pays compound interest. The smallest disciplines often create the biggest rewards. Another important habit is learning to protect your solitude. Not everyone will understand it. Some people will think you're being unsociable. Others may assume you're withdrawing. But there's a difference between isolating yourself from people and intentionally creating space to become a better person for the people you care about. You're not stepping away because you love others less. You're stepping away for a while so you can return with greater wisdom, greater patience, greater clarity, and greater purpose. The people who benefit most from your solitude are often the people waiting for the best version of you. Remember, balance is important. Life is meant to be shared. Relationships matter. Family matters. Friendships matter. Service matters. Solitude isn't meant to replace those things. It's meant to strengthen them. When you know yourself, you love others more genuinely. When your mind is clear, your conversations become more meaningful. When your emotions are steady, your relationships become healthier. When your purpose is clear, your contribution becomes greater. Everything improves because the person creating those experiences has improved. Never believe that personal growth is selfish. Becoming wiser allows you to give wiser advice. Becoming calmer allows you to bring peace into difficult situations. Becoming stronger allows you to help others carry their burdens. The greatest gift you can offer the world is not a perfect life. It's a continually improving life. So beginning tomorrow morning, or better yet, beginning today, make an appointment with yourself that you refuse to cancel. Protect those quiet moments as faithfully as you would protect any important meeting because, in many ways, they are the most important meetings you'll ever have. Years from now, you may look back and discover that the moments you once thought were empty were actually the moments that quietly built the life you always hoped to live. The world changes when you change, and that change begins in the quiet moments you choose every single day.